Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into something pretty wild. How a single billionaire couple came to control a massive share of California's most precious resource, water. Okay, to really get a grip on this, let's start with a number, 3.8 million. That's how many people live in the city of Los Angeles. Think about all the water they're using every single day for drinking, showering, you name it. It's a staggering amount. Now hold that thought and consider this number, 2. Just 2, because that's how many people use more water than that entire city combined. I mean, how is that even possible, right? That's the huge question here, and it really gets to the heart of how our resources are managed. How on earth did 2 individuals gain control over so much of a public resource, and what are the consequences for everyone else? This whole story, this incredible amount of control, it all comes down to one couple, Stuart and Linda Resnick. They're the world's second richest farm owners. But this isn't just a story about farming. It's really about strategy, about marketing, and ultimately about power. And what's so fascinating is that they weren't born into this world. They didn't inherit some big farming dynasty. Stuart was the son of a bar owner who studied law and became this incredible dealmaker. And Linda, she was an absolute genius when it came to advertising and marketing. You put those 2 together, and you've got a powerhouse team perfectly set up to build an empire. Their strategy was, well, kind of simple but brilliant. They would find these overlooked products, market the heck out of them, and build this massive empire that honestly touches our lives in ways we probably don't even realize. I mean, you've definitely seen their stuff. Linda took the pomegranate, which was, a pretty obscure fruit back then, and turned it into a magical elixir with Palm Wonderful juice. And Fiji water? She rebranded that as this exotic, pure luxury, famously untouched by man, and made it the biggest imported bottled water brand in the US. But here's the catch. The one crucial thing their entire agricultural empire depended on, all those massive orchards growing almonds and pistachios, which are incredibly thirsty crops, needed one thing above all else, water, a ton of it. And they needed it right in the middle of drought-prone California. And that need for water brings us right to the absolute core of this story. A pivotal, and get this, secret meeting that would fundamentally change California's water landscape forever. See, before 1994, California water law was pretty straightforward. First come, first served. If you had been there a long time, you had senior rights and you got your water first. But newer operations, like the Resnick's expanding farms, had junior rights. That meant that every time there was a drought, they were the first ones to get cut off. A major, major risk for their business. Their solution focused on one target, the Kern Water Bank. Now, this was a massive underground storage facility, built with taxpayer money, mind you. It was supposed to be a public savings account for water. But in 1994, Stuart Resnick orchestrated a secret meeting that led to its privatization, with his company walking away as the majority owner. The strategy was masterful. First, they argued the state was failing to deliver water. Then they proposed a solution. Just transfer the bank to local districts, including one they controlled. Finally, they made what seemed like an insane offer. They'd give up their unreliable junior rights, basically paper promises for water, in exchange for a controlling stake in the bank itself, which held 500 billion gallons of very real water. The state took the bait. So the deal was a massive win for the Resnicks. It allowed them to expand their land holdings and even sell that once public water back to the state at a premium. But for California, it had staggering consequences. This deal just amplified a huge imbalance in the state's economy. As you can see here, agriculture in California uses a staggering 80% of the managed water supply, yet it contributes just 2% to the GDP. That kind of disconnect raises some serious questions about how the state's most vital resource is allocated. And this intensive water use has had real physical consequences. According to NASA experts, the relentless pumping of groundwater is causing the land in parts of the state to literally sink, with Kern County being one of the most affected regions. So, to protect this powerful position, they used significant political and academic influence. By donating heavily to governors and funding key university studies, they helped shape the public narrative and policy around California's water. This control all came to a head during the recent, devastating wildfires. Public anger just flared with accusations that the Resnicks were hoarding water that could have been used to fight the flames. They vehemently denied this, calling it a conspiracy and pointing out their water systems are totally separate from LA's. An investigation by officials confirmed that the firefighting problem wasn't a lack of water. LA's tanks were full. The issue was the city's infrastructure struggling to deliver massive volumes of water everywhere at once. And importantly, the state constitution gives the government power to take private water in a crisis if needed. The wildfire controversy was really just the flashpoint for a much deeper, more central debate this entire story presents. In the face of that intense public outcry, the Resnick's wonderful company pledged $10 million to support wildfire relief efforts. But that gesture hasn't silenced the fundamental questions their story raises. Why was a backroom deal that privatized a taxpayer-funded asset never fully investigated? Does it create a conflict of interest when those who control a public resource are also major political donors? Is it time for California's water laws to be completely rewritten? And this brings us to the absolute core of the debate. Is water a commodity to be bought and sold on the open market, or is it a fundamental human right that should belong to everyone? Ultimately, this story isn't just about two billionaires in California. It forces all of us to ask what we believe should happen when immense private fortunes are built on a resource that every single person needs to survive. The real question is, where do we draw the line?